Namavinu kali kale nahi hara dharma. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Can't hear you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariravatikshaya Sutar Sakasri Srimad His Divine Grace Aboy Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Vrindavan Dhama Ki Mayapur Navadweep Dhama Ki Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Maharani Ki Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today is the appearance day of Srila Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy, if he was a kami, he'd be very confused. He's a combined incarnation of Arjuna, warrior, and Vishaka, Manjari, Gopi. Born in a Sudra family, employed by Maharaj Prataparudra as a governor of Madras. Fortunately, he is a Prema Bhakta. So all of those apparent contradictions which would drive a normal mortal up the wall are perfectly resolved at the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radhakrishna under the guidance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's an extremely exalted personality. One of the only 3.5 persons that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would discuss Radha Krishna Leela with, confidential topics about Krishna. Can't remember where he was born. The first time he met Lord Chaitanya, he was personally introduced by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya first. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had become a devotee after being the court pundit for the king in Orissa and Puri. The court pundit, the Rajguru, the topmost Mayavadi. And he gained Lord Chaitanya's favour, and Lord Chaitanya marvelled at Krishna's mercy. Lord Chaitanya marvelled at Krishna's mercy that such a staunch impersonalist, not atheist, impersonalist Mayavadi had now embraced Krishna consciousness. Once after Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became convinced, he had a change of heart, he'd just gotten up, and the smarter Brahmana principle, which he was a very strict adherent of, dictate that before you've bathed, you shouldn't do anything spiritual. You shouldn't touch any books, you shouldn't take prasadam, you shouldn't do anything. You have to bathe. You should bathe before you chant your Gayatri. You shouldn't touch anything. So Lord Chaitanya appeared in the morning just after Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had just arisen, and he had some Mahaprasadam with him. And he offered it to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who immediately took it and put it in his mouth. And he said, "Just see how my smarter principles have gone by the wayside. Now I have full faith in these remnants of foodstuff from the lotus feet, the lotus mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Previously, I was eating dry, crushed oil cakes. In Mayapur, they make mustard seed oil. And after they've crushed all the mustard seeds, they're dry cakes. They throw them on the ground and use them for fertilizer. But that was his food. So he considered, or the analogy that is described. Now he was absorbed in Krishna Bhakti, Krishna Prem. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after spending some time in Lord Chaitanya's association, nice colours, matches, and Lord Chaitanya was about to head off on his tour of South India. He requested Lord Chaitanya to please go and visit Ramananda Roy. And he gave a little hint to his exalted character. So we'll recite the verse and then we'll continue with that story. Kiva Vipra Kiva Nyasi Sudra Keninai Ye Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru Hai Kiva Vipra Kiva Nyasi Sudra Keninai Ye Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru Hai Kiva Vipra Kiva Nyasi Sudra Keninai Ye Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru Hai Kiba, whether, Vipra, a Brahmana. Kiba, whether, Nyasi, a sannyasi. Sudra, a Sudra. Kene, why? Naya, not. Yea, anyone who. Krishna Tattva Veta, a knower of the science of Krishna. Say, that person, Guru, the spiritual master, higher, is. Who doesn't know this verse? Okay. 1 week to learn it. Translation. Whether one is a Brahmana, a sannyasi, or a Sudra, regardless of what he is, he can become a spiritual master if he knows the science of Krishna. Please repeat. Whether one is a Brahmana, a sannyasi or a Sudra, regardless of what he is, he can become a spiritual master if he knows the science of Krishna. This is chapter 8, Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, verse number 128, for those who want to learn. Madhya Lila, chapter 8, text 128. I'm going to read from Chaitanya Subhadini. This is a beautiful series of books, study guides, helping us to enter deeper into the study of the scriptures. Gauranga Darshan, who is a part of Radhanath Swami's Eco Village, they have a higher education wing. There's some famous Radhe Shyam and Radha Gopinath Prabhus there. And Chaitanya Charan, he's been here. They're all graduates from that area. So Madhya Lila chapter 8 talks between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. This series is really convenient. At the front there's a summary. There's a short summary, 4 4 bullet points virtually, 7 bullet points, and then they're elaborated on. So the bullet points read, this is a summary of the chapter. Lord Chaitanya meets Ramananda Roy on the banks of Godavari. There are many, many sacred rivers in India. Gange cha, Jamune chaiva, Godavari, Saraswati, Namadi, Sindhu, Kaveri. So Godavari is one of those sacred rivers. So on the banks of the Godavari, Lord Chaitanya meets Ramananda Roy. First question. The highest perfection of human life, Sajja. What is the highest perfection of human life? Question 2. The truth of Radha Krishna and their pastimes. Question 3. The sadhana, process to attain the Sajja. Sajja is the goal. So, Sajja and sadhana. Sajja and sadhana. You've got to know your goal. Sambandha, Abhidheya and Prayojana. If that's all confused, if you don't know Sambandha, which means you don't know who you are you? Okay, that's very exalted understanding. I'm not this body, is the beginning. And then, okay, I'm not this body, Aham Brahmasmi. Then next level up, Aham Brahmasmi is confidential knowledge, spiritual knowledge. It's not material knowledge. Aham Brahmasmi. Higher up is Jivara Swarup Hoy Nitya Krishnadas. The constitutional position of the living entity is as an eternal servant of Krishna. That's more confidential knowledge. The most confidential knowledge is understanding of Krishna. Because when you understand Krishna, then you can understand yourself simultaneously. Because we are non-different from Krishna, simultaneously one with Krishna, but inconceivably different. How are we different? One person loud? Quantity. What sort of quantity?
The way of mind is in Krishna is correct.
Yeah.
Quality, we have the same quality.
Krishna is infinite. Any mathematicians out there? How big is infinite? Right. And we are, to the contrary, if Krishna is great and we are small, what's the opposite of infinite? Sorry? Finite. Finite, yeah. Finite is pretty cut and dry. Sweeter than that is infinitesimal. Sounds really, yeah, infinitesimal. So that's the difference. We're one with Krishna, but we're different. So that's the Sambandha. That's the knowledge of who we are. Then once we know who we are, we have to know what to do. So that's the practice. That's the Abhidheya. Activities to engage in as a living entity, spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna. And then the goal. Sambandha, Abhidheya and Prayojan. We have to know what we're going for. So if we don't want to do the activity, we wake up in the morning, we're having a bad hair day and we just couldn't be bothered doing anything, then we have to gain sight of the goal. We have to inspire ourselves. I'm not going to do anything, but why should I get up? Because I'll be better off, I'll be more happy, I'll actually achieve a blissful life very quickly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Connected again. So sometimes before you can act, you have to become clear why you should act. What's your goal? If you're mental, you're on the mental platform. For some reason, extremely uncommon, I didn't chant any Gayatris during the day. So that meant 3 Gayatris in the evening. That's often like a really shocking awakening. Oh my God. And then to actually execute that aspect of sadhana, that austerity, because you have to control your mind. So to help, sometimes you're chanting and your mind's drifting off. Sometimes to help, it's better to chant loudly. Sometimes you're reading and you're falling asleep, so it's better to stand up or read to somebody, or read aloud. So the process for chanting the Gayatri mantra is to murmur, just a little bit above silently, not in your mind. You can't chant your Gayatri in your mind. We're too neophyte to do that, to fix our, because the mind will trick us. So 3 Gayatris. To assist myself, I chanted them a little bit louder and clearly pronouncing the words. Om, Bhu, Bhuvaha. And obviously by hearing the words, making more distinct, they became more tangible. Instead of just like a blur, 3 minutes of chanting the Gayatri. It takes about 7 minutes because there's 70 mantras you have to chant. The next morning, I just experienced so much clarity, so much power. The Gayatri mantra is, the Maha mantra is the great mantra for deliverance, for delivering the mind, for purifying the mind. The Gayatri mantra is described as sin-devouring mantra. It's extremely powerful. And I've seen exalted devotees, they're very attentive. It's the juncture, the Trisandhya, we sing every morning. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado, yasya prasada nagati kutopi, dayam stuvams tri, how does it go? Yasya trisandhyam. Trisandhyam. The Trisandhya means the 3 junctures, morning, noon and evening. So and we should think of our spiritual master at least 3 times a day. So for the Brahmana, those 3 times a day are set out. So exalted devotees who understand the benefits of the Gayatri, they stick to it. Before I was a devotee, I went and visited the Rath Yatra, the Mumba, the float construction site in Melbourne. They were building a 25-foot or longer form of Mahavishnu lying down on an Antashesh with a big, I think they had a seat, the lotus flower with the throne coming from the navel. And that throne was so that a couple of devotees could sit on it. And Sri Prahlad was Krishna, and there was another devotee who was Radha. And there was devotees around, and they went down the main street of Melbourne. 400,000 people came, and they won a prize. So the artists who were constructing that float, Bhakta Das and Dhanvantari Prabhu. Yeah, I was there, and it was around midday. I don't know whether I was talking to the devotees, but suddenly I noticed Dhanvantari, he was sitting on a 44-gallon drum on the side, silent, about 7 minutes. And then about 2 minutes later, Bhakta Prabhu sat down and did the same thing. That was my first exposure to the Gayatri mantra. Didn't know what was going on. First time I went to the temple, I've been to the temple a few times. First time I became exposed to Tulsi Devi was in Adelaide Temple. Got there in the morning, and the devotees were worshipping the bush. They were dancing around a little tree, and it was beautiful. Real environmentalists. And I got a garland, and I went and visited my brother who was living with a Mayavadi, and everything fell apart. The whole world went upside down, topsy-turvy. But it's so beautiful to have that experience of Tulsi. So the Gayatri. Following up to the Gayatri 3 times chanted loudly. If you don't chant your Gayatri, you have to chant your Gayatri, 3 Gayatris a day. That's the vow of the Brahmana. You don't get your Gayatri unless you feel that you're capable of fulfilling that vow. Srila Prabhupada is asked, what's the power of the devotee? And he described Guru Parampara. Guru Parampara. We hear from our spiritual master. We follow in the footsteps of our spiritual master, and we get empowered by the spiritual master. And in another instance, there was a discussion with Srila Prabhupada. There's all of these new technologies, there's all this high-fangled gizmos and stuff like that are coming out. Are they any good? What's the value of them? And Prabhupada said, well, we don't ignore them. Narada Muni's principle. Yukta Vairagya. We can utilize them in Krishna's service. However, even more powerful, even more useful, even more effective, even more practical is what he described as soft technology. That's all hard technology. Soft technology is Guru Parampara. Sound vibration. Sound vibration is so powerful. In the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it can penetrate the universe. Krishna can hear in the spiritual world the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So the quality of sound recited purely. What's pure chanting called? Shuddhanam. What happens if you can chant at that level?
Get elevated.
To where?
To
Uttama. Okay, what's an Uttama?
highly advanced ability.
Okay.
No pure time machine.
You're not here. You're liberated. You're in the spiritual world. You're chanting pure Shuddhanam. That's the quality of sound. And if we're not there, Cheto Darpanam Marjanam Bhavamahadavagni Navapanam, if we're not experiencing a thrill at every moment, then there's something wrong with our determination. Our Sambandha is not clear. Our Abhidheya is not paka. Prayojana, we don't know where we're going. It's like driving down the road when the windscreen covered in mud. It's dangerous. So the sajja and the sadhana are another two ways of describing that. What's the goal? Sajja. And what is the sadhana? So Lord Chaitanya's first four questions to Ramananda Roy, question 4. The greatest things. What is the greatest type of education? What is the greatest misfortune? Etc., etc. These are questions that Lord Chaitanya asked Ramananda Roy. And finally in the chapter we have Lord Chaitanya reveals his form to Ramananda Roy in the glorious conversation of Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda. Glorious conversation. It cannot be... Sorry, this is reflecting light. It cannot be described exhaustively, this glorious conversation. One who hears it with faith and without argument will attain prema bhakti. You can't describe it fully, but if you just hear it with faith and without argument, you will attain prema bhakti. That's the power of sound. Sound vibration, properly absorbed in the proper mood and the proper attitude from the proper person. So, the start of Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association. Lord Chaitanya's on his tour of South India and he visits Jyada and Shringa. Lord Chaitanya went forward on his tour and after some days arrived at the holy place called Jyada Nrsimha. Seeing the deity of Lord Nrsimha, he offered obeisances. In ecstatic love, he danced, chanted and offered prayers. And this is the prayer. This is another prayer that's really nice. I greeted my godbrother with this mantra just now. Shri Nrsimha Jai Nrsimha Jai Jai Nrsimha Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringa, which means, all glories to Nrsimha Dev, who is the Lord of Pralad and like a honeybee is always engaged in beholding the lotus-like face of the goddess of fortune. Another verse glorifying Lord Nrsimha. Ugrapyanugra evayam swabhaktanam nrikeshari keshariva swapoltanam anyesham ugra vikramaha. Kindness of Nrsimhadev. Although very ferocious, the lioness is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, Lord Nrsimha is very, very soft and kind to devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. The next morning, in great ecstasy of love, Lord Chaitanya started on his tour with no knowledge of the direction. Lord Chaitanya would wander around in ecstasy and bliss, just chanting. Sometimes Lord Nityananda would also go travelling, and their chanting party would just deviate all over the place, 3 hours in one direction. Oh, we're trying to get to here. Oh, that you've gone past, it's that way. But just being absorbed in Krishna Prem, in bliss, wherever they were, that was fine. Lord Chaitanya was wandering for 3 days. He was trying to go to Vrindavan. He ended up in Shantipur. And Advaita Acharya appeared in a boat on the river, which he'd been told was the river Jamuna. It was only the Ganges. And Lord Chaitanya said, "Where am I?" "I was heading for Vrindavan." And Advaita Acharya said, "My Lord, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan." So when you're absorbed in another realm, when you're not in this world, you're in another world, the spiritual world, wherever you are. Krishna consciousness, Vrindavan, it's a state of consciousness. The ashram, the brahmachari ashram, the grihastha ashram, it's a state of consciousness. You can be living in a hole in the ground. You can still be practicing ashram life. The 6 Goswamis, they used to live under a different tree every night. They were perfectly satisfied. Searching for Krishna's places of pastimes. No knowledge of the direction. As previously he converted to Vaishnavism many people he met. After some days he reached the banks of the river Godavari. Seeing the river, the Lord remembered Jamuna. And seeing the forest on the banks, he remembered Sri Vrindavan Dham. It's called Udipan. What does Udipan mean, Rupa? Impetus. Stimulus for remembrance. The example is given of the mother who is so affectionate, so attached to her child. She sees her child's shoes. She immediately thinks of the child and she feels all motherly. So, stimulus, Udipan. Lord Chaitanya saw some trees, a forest. Forests in India are just, we have a Kadamba forest down the bottom here. It's a forest, there's 6 trees there. You remember Vrindavan Dham. You remember Krishna. After his usual chanting and dancing, he crossed the river and took bath on the other bank. He then walked a little distance and started chanting. What else to do? Chant, chant, chant. Now Guru Maharaj, he gets to a place, he's on a tour, and the devotees have got to engage him in some activity. Oh, you've got a class, you've got a disciple meeting, you've got a lecture on the television, you've got to meet such and such in a day. Okay, I'll get prepared. If nothing appears within 5 minutes, let's go on Harinam. Unbelievable. Just have to be absorbed in the holy name. And yeah, 3 hours absorbed. They measure. We were just absorbed, and their absorption. I experienced it. When you're in the middle of a kirtan, you don't notice anything else. You're not aware of all your problems. You're just absorbed in the middle of the kirtan. So I had to hold the microphone. We had a little portable microphone on the Harinam, and holding the microphone for somebody while they're leading kirtan in ecstasy is quite a task, because you can't punch them in the teeth, you can't injure them with this thing. So it required full absorption to just follow the leader. And after 10 minutes or so, just their absorption, that it rubs off on you. You're absorbed in the holy name. Your mental platform has disappeared, just to be absorbed in the holy name. So Lord Chaitanya started chanting. He arrived and he started chanting. Then Ramananda Roy arrived. Ramananda Roy, he's the governor. So he came with a whole entourage, and there was Vedic brahmanas chanting mantras. Om Sahasrasesha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabomim Viftatavata mantras. And he was on a palanquin. He's a governor. He was on a palanquin. He came down to the river, came there on a palanquin. According to the Vedic rituals, he took bath and offered oblations to his forefathers. Lord Chaitanya's eagerness, he recognized the person as Ramananda Roy. The Lord wanted so much to meet him that his mind immediately began running after him, yet he patiently remained sitting. Ramananda Roy, seeing the wonderful sannyasi, then came to see him. Ramananda Roy saw Lord Chaitanya to be as brilliant as 100 suns, covered by a saffron garment, large in body. How tall was Lord Chaitanya? 7 feet. Tall for a Bengali. How tall was Prabhupada? 5 foot 4 inches. My mother was 5 foot 1.5 inches. 1 3/4 inches. Very proud of that 3/4 of an inch. We used to call her minimum. So Srila Prabhupada was minute in physical form, but huge in stature. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a large body. His arms reached down to his knees. Kolavecha Shrita, banana man Kolavecha, used to sell him bananas. And Lord Chaitanya would come to take the bananas, and then he would argue. If you go shopping and you don't bargain, you don't argue the price, then it's boring. You just go on Coles, go and pick to the checkout, and it's just click, click, click. What sort of shopping is that? There's no endeavour. You're just putting fuel stuff in the machine. And that's your life. Eating, sleeping, mating and defending. So Lord Chaitanya would argue. These bananas are overpriced. He was selling them rock bottom price. They're overpriced. You're trying to steal money from a sannyasi. I'm not going to pay you. And he'd take the bananas and get ready to walk away. Kolavecha Shrita would try and come there and grab the bananas out of Lord Chaitanya's arms. And Lord Chaitanya would put his long arm on Kolavecha Shrita's head. 7 foot long arm. And so tried to reach, he couldn't reach, Lord, he couldn't reach. And they were fighting backwards and forth, arguing, you're a nonsense, I can barely live. Kolavecha Shrita, he lived on selling bananas and banana leaf for plate, banana bark for cups. He was poverty stricken. But he would spend half of his income to purchase incense to worship Mother Ganges. People came and said, you're so poor, why don't you save some of your money, build up your capital, fix up your house, it's full of holes, get yourself some new clothes, eat properly. He was saying, no, now that devotion is manifest, I don't want to stop it for anything. Srila Prabhupada said the same thing. When he saw that the Hare Krishna mantra was taken to the streets of God-forsaken New York and other places, he thought, that's the purpose of my visit. The holy name has appeared. The holy name is taking root. And then so pleased when he arrived in London and the holy name was being chanted nationwide. 70,000 Hare Krishna mantra records were being sold per day. There were big billboards with the devotees' faces in the railway station. So they're so satisfied later. So Kolavecha Shrita, he was satisfied that his devotion was manifesting. I'm not going to stop worshipping the Ganges because I don't know if I'll ever be able to get it going again. So he said to Lord Chaitanya, I'm so poor. Lord Chaitanya said, no, I want these. I want you for half price. That's the way you bargain. Somebody offers you a price, 400 rupees, I'll give you 180. And they'll come up a little bit. Oh, come on, you can do. I can't afford it. For you, I make no profit. Rubbish. Even if they make 1 rupee profit on you, they're satisfied because that's more. That's the principle of economics. You make more, you sell something for more than you buy it for. So Kolavecha Shrita, he didn't want to compromise. He said, listen, I'd rather give it to you for nothing. Charity. I make more profit that way than trying to squeeze some proper price out of you. So large in body, strongly built, with eyes like lotus petals. Devotees develop lotus eyes because they're always meditating on the lotus-eyed Lord. So long lotus eyes, the description of the face of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, the eyes practically to their ears. Of course they can be accentuated with that kajal, but beautiful lotus eyes. Eyes like lotus petals. Struck with wonder, Ramananda went to him and offered obeisances. The Lord stood up and asked Ramananda Roy to arise and chant the holy name of Krishna. Hari Bo! Bolo Hari! Chant the name of Krishna, Hari. Indeed, Lord Chaitanya was very eager to embrace him and inquired whether he was Ramananda Roy, and he replied, yes, I am, your very low servant, and I belong to the Sudra community. They embraced in bliss, in love, in ecstatic love. And then after a while they realized that all the brahmanas who were there in their rituals were criticizing, were wondering what's going on. The reaction of the brahmanas. Seeing this, the stereotyped, ritualistic brahmanas were struck with wonder and thought, this sannyasi has a luster like the effulgence of Brahman. But how is he is crying upon embracing a Sudra? This Ramananda Roy is the governor of Madras, a highly learned and grave person, a Mahapandit. But upon touching this sannyasi, he has become restless like a madman. So they controlled their ecstasies, they withdrew their consciousness, not to offend, not to disturb the minds of these Pashandis. So then they arranged to meet. They just at that time also a Vaishnav appeared and invited Lord Chaitanya for lunch. A principal of sannyas, principal of devotees, Lord Chaitanya, he said he will only eat at the house of a lakpati, or like a crorepati. What's a crorepati? Lakpati. A lakpati. What's a lakpati, Vishnu Jan Prabhu? 100,000 names. Crorepati in India is somebody who's got a lot of money. A crore is 10 million. It's hard to work out the rupee things, the way they write them. 10 million. So 10 million. If you've got 10 million rupees, then you're a small-time rich person. 1 crore, 2 crores, 53 crores, 500, yeah. Government's got lots of money. So Lord Chaitanya would not eat at the house of anybody who was not a lakpati. Means not, unless you're chanting 100,000 names. How many names do you chant a day, Shan?
Many names.
How many names of the Lord do you chant per day?
I forgot the exact number of 6 examples. Is it like 1,000 something?
Minimum.
Yeah, minimum 16 rounds, but like what's the actual numbers?
27,000.
About
25,000. 25 to 27,000. So 100,000 is how many?
64.
64 rounds. So unless you chant 64 rounds, then devotees, they're not going to come and take prasadam in place. Lord Chaitanya, bow. Okay, so he got a lunch invitation. Before he left the bank of the river, he told Ramananda, I want to spend time with you. So Lord Chaitanya went home, took prasad, took bath, and in the evening they gathered together. And then Lord Chaitanya, I think, Ramananda, he wasn't travelling with his retinue, he had one servant. So Lord Chaitanya, he took him aside to a solitary place. It was a Rahastan, like a sacred, a secluded place. And there they started to discuss about Krishna in the form of these questions and answers. What is the sadhya? What's the sadhya? What's the goal of life? So Ramananda Roy began Kamapranam. It's like nice karma. Kamapranam. To renounce the fruits of the activities. Lord Chaitanya said, Eho Bhaya. That's external. Then he asked, then Ramananda Roy said something, he said, Varnashram. Varnashram, one should be engaged in Varnashram. Eho Bhaya. That's external. This is just moral and ethical consideration. It's not going to get you satisfied. The next consideration Ramananda Roy presented to Lord Chaitanya, before that he said, look, you're asking me questions, I'm not sure whether I know the answers. So Lord Chaitanya encouraged him. The next proposition was Jnana Mishra Bhakti. I've got that in order. Jnana Mishra Bhakti. That's Jnana Mishra. Bhakti, knowledge about devotion, but mixed, not pure. So Lord Chaitanya said, Eho Laya. That's better, because by this process then one will get close to Krishna. But can you go further? So Jnana Bhakti. No, Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Bhakti Yoga. Without the mixture. Pure. No speculation. Okay, that's better. And then, can you go further? Okay, Prema Bhakti. Prema Bhakti in the mood of Radha and Krishna. Okay, that's more satisfying. Eho Uttama. That's the best. That is going to get you the topmost success in life. You're going to achieve love for Radha and Krishna, you achieve liberation. Prema Bhakti. So then, the sadhana, how do you achieve Prema Bhakti? All the other sadhanas, you perform austerities, you practice the Varnashram Dham, they're external. They can assist, but they're external. So what sadhana will get you Prema Bhakti? Chanting? Yes. Yes. Chanting and hearing. Hearing and chanting. About what? The Lord's holy names, yes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay. It's almost time for prasadam. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Because we've just started the conversation, we got to the conclusion of we should chant Hare Krishna. Ramananda Roy, this conversation it's a whole chapter. We've just begun. There's so many other wonderful attributes. In one search there was 459 references in Srila Prabhupada's books to Ramananda Roy. Some of his other pastimes are exquisite. I'll just mention he was a governor, so after spending time with Lord Chaitanya and discussing and asking all the questions backwards and forwards, it's called the Ramananda Samvad, the discussion between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. It's very educational. That Kiba Vipra Kiba Nasti, that verse appears there because at one stage Ramananda Roy was saying, I'm not qualified, and then Lord Chaitanya said, this is the qualification. Whether you're a Sudra, whether you're a sannyasi, if you know the science of Krishna, then you can preach. You can preach. You have to know the science of Krishna. What's the science of Krishna? Prabhupada's books. So Ramananda Roy, he said, please stay with me, my mind is becoming purified, please stay with me for at least 10 days. And Lord Chaitanya said, I want you to stay with me for the rest of your life. So Ramananda Roy was the governor. He went back to his job, he met the king, Prataparudra, and he said, I want to quit and go and spend time with Lord Chaitanya. Maharaj Prataparudra said, you have my blessings. And he doubled his pay, gave him a good big pension. That's a proper government, a proper leader. You're concerned about the welfare of the people, you're concerned about making spiritual advancement, you do the right thing. So then Maharaj Prataparudra, the king of the whole area, said, I want to take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu too. Previously I've heard that the devotees, they petition the Lord. And he says, I understand that Maharaj Prataparudra is a great devotee, he has all good qualities. But just the fact that he calls himself king destroys them all. You should not associate with moneyed people because there's the potential for corruption. So Ramananda Roy stepped in on behalf of Maharaj Prataparudra. He said, okay, I'll do my best. And he very diplomatically requested Lord Chaitanya to meet Maharaj Prataparudra. He said, send your son. The son is a representative of the father. Send your son. So Maharaj Prataparudra's son came and was listening to Lord Chaitanya. He was a prince, so he was already an elevated person. And then Lord Chaitanya started preaching, he gave him some prasadam. And the son, the prince, became overwhelmed with ecstatic love and started dancing. He became a topmost devotee, and then Lord Chaitanya counted him as one of his personal associates. So then he went home. Lord Chaitanya embraced him. The son of the king went home, and he went back to the king, and the king embraced his son, and he felt that same upliftment, that same ecstasy. Ramananda Roy was implicit in arranging that through his expert diplomacy. Lord Chaitanya, he taught, he teaches people through the devotees. The devotees exemplify certain qualities. So Haridas Thakur, he exemplified tolerance. Haridas Thakur, chanting the holy names. He was beaten in 22 different marketplaces by the leaders because he wouldn't stop chanting Hare Krishna. And he kept on chanting Hare Krishna. So he's known as an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj, who was very tolerant. He tolerated Lord Hiranyakashipu's torment. Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Brahma combined. Tolerance. Ramananda Roy exemplified renunciation. Renounced. To demonstrate this, Pradyumna Mishra went to Lord Chaitanya. He said, I want to hear Krishna Katha. And Lord Chaitanya said, go and listen to Ramananda Roy. I hear from him. He tells me Krishna Katha. So Pradyumna Mishra went to Ramananda Roy. He came to his house. A servant greeted him and said, excuse me, can you wait? Ramananda Roy's teaching the dancing girls this song. Ramananda Roy wrote a beautiful drama, Jagannath Ballabha Natikam. So Pradyumna Mishra waited, and Ramananda Roy, the description is that he was training these young girls how to perform a drama for the pleasure of Krishna, for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath. And he was bathing these young girls and massaging their bodies and anointing them and dressing them and showing them how to express these moods, these amazing moods of love of God. So Pradyumna Mishra waited, and then Ramananda Roy came and said, I heard you were here, I'm sorry for keeping you up. And then Lord Chaitanya met Pradyumna Mishra. Okay, did you hear from Ramananda Roy? No, we're going to meet another time. But he described, he's such an exalted devotee. Lord Chaitanya said, yes, he is the emblem of renunciation. He's dealing with these young girls in the process of bathing them. He's touching their private parts. But his response is like wood or stone. He just doesn't waver an inch. Lord Chaitanya said, if I even see a woman, if I even hear a woman's name, then my mind becomes disturbed. So Ramananda Roy, he's an incarnation of Vishaka. He's absorbed in love of Godhead. He wants to train these young girls how to present a beautiful play for Krishna's pleasure. The emblem of renunciation. Another emblem of renunciation was Raghunath Das Goswami. But Lord Chaitanya teaches through his disciples, through his followers, different principles of devotional service. So today is his appearance day. On the appearance day of these great souls, we should pray for their mercy. We should appeal to them for their blessings. We should appeal for Vishaka, that we can enter into the service, just like we appeal every day to Srimati Brinda Devi, Tulsi Devi. Please engage me in your service. Give me the privilege of devotional service. So we have to appeal, we have to ask, and if we ask in the proper mood, we get their blessings, then tadastu, so be it. So take advantage of Ramananda Roy. He's a very exalted personality, a mixed combination of Arjuna and Vishaka, very dear, the topmost servant of Lord Chaitanya, one of the only 3.5 persons that Lord Chaitanya would deign to discuss Krishna's pastimes with. So Ramananda Roy ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi.